False Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm John Buhler, staff writer, fanside.com. I'm joined today by a man who probably hates football right now, who's still okay with basketball for the time being, but he's still a good person, happy to be here, I suppose, on a Veterans Day. Veteran of taking L's like myself, Cody
Yes.
Williams, content director, fanside.com. Hey, brother, how you doing? Okay, I guess maybe.
I mean, the thing that I like to tell myself at this point in my life is, these teams can't hurt you. These teams really can't hurt you in a real way anymore. I'm numb to the pain. I've been a Cowboys fan for the past 30 years of my life, and the past 30 years for the Cowboys have not gone particularly well. So, just the disappointment's just coming early this year. So we're totally fine.
Yeah, you didn't lose to the Saints. So actually, you did lose to the Saints, but
Yeah, we
the last
lost
time
worse to the Saints, but it's
uh,
fine.
we we book ended a 7 game losing streak for the Saints.
Hell yes.
Then you played the Eagles, and we had a very different results in that game. But yeah, North Carolina might actually go to a bowl game. I think that's. I've been looking at the math, doing some of the projections here, for pouring out and bowling later. But like, it's looking kind of decent. Looking like it's
Yeah.
they might actually do it. There's a few teams where it's not looking great, but
No, 100%. And like this is not a topic on the show, but like it makes me happy that North Carolina is going to do this because like I've been a vocal supporter of like getting Mac Brown out of there after this year, but like I also understand that Mac Brown has done a lot of good for this football program. That Mac Brown did not have to come back and try to save this football program. And so like if North Carolina can make a bowl game, then it makes parting ways with Mac Brown, who I think is going to retire anyway, but like it's going to be less of a forced retirement and more of a, yeah, Mac, let's ride off in the sunset. But if we can do that on a happy note, hell yeah, let's do that.
I mean, it's better to be coached by Mac Brown than Kirk Ferentz because I mean he's going to drag this thing out until he dies in the field.
100%. Yeah, he's never mind. I'm not going to say what I was about to say.
It's getting to the point with him where like he's going to lose his mind. He's going to be standing out there in the middle of Kinnick, thinking that they're going to try to tear it down. All they're trying to do is cut the grass with the deer. He's like he chains himself up to the goalpost.
Have you ever seen the clip from Friday Night Lights, the TV show, where the coach gets way too amped up, the opposing coach, and he tackles the player from the Dillon Panthers, and he's like, "That's how you stick him. That's how you stick him." That's gonna be how Kurt Ferentz goes out. He's just gonna get more and more senile, and then just tackle an opposing player running up the sideline.
On that note, I don't know if Darren Rizzi pulled something celebrating the Saints win, but he got a little too fired up there too.
Hey, as a man who's pulled more muscles this year in his life than probably any other year of his life combined, like, yeah, it happens. It'd be like that.
It's what happens when you're in your Jesus year. You just start pulling things.
Yeah, yeah. Both hamstrings have been pulled this year, so we're thriving.
We're just living on borrowed time at this point, but we obviously fall started, and we're going to start this show off with Stephen B. Swift's second take. Yes, got that right. Told you we were going to replace part of From Ward Manual's manual with this, so this will be the Monday one, and then Thursday will be From Ward Manual's manual. How we'll start the show for as long as there's like a regular season and whatnot. But the AP Top 25's out, and it reacted to the CFP rankings of last week, plus the losses and other wins and stuff. And it'll be interesting to see how the selection committee reacts here. So, any initial takeaways for you before I get into some of mine?
I think that I'm actually going to start positive. And that's not normally my tone when I'm attacking the
No.
AP top 25. But Indiana getting the respect it deserved. And granted, they got some help to get up there, but getting into the top five, like that certainly is a what they deserve at this point. You're 10 and 0. Like you don't get to 10 and 0 flukishly. And they've won different ways. They survived a scare against Michigan when things weren't working the way we've seen them work for the Hoosiers, and they're still 10 and 0. So like getting them in the top 5, that's what should have been done probably a couple weeks ago. I know that you think because it's on fansided.com if you want to read the full piece, but I know you think that the CFP might have Indiana a little lower. I'm inclined to agree with you on that. Like, I do think that the CFP committee they seemed a little trepidatious about Indiana, and even with the losses ahead of them, I still think they're going to be looking and saying, okay, where's the quality win? And right now, like Nebraska, Michigan, those are decent wins, but they're not in the caliber of everyone ahead of them, essentially.
That was kind of my big takeaway from the article. Again, we shifted from, three teams that are too high and too low in the AP top 25 to like, how's the committee going to rank it differently? People have to, rework their brains and try to figure it out and stuff. But like, I see Indiana at five. I'm like, that feels justified in some capacities. But then I look at it and I'm sitting there thinking, like, is this team really going to win multiple playoff games? And I don't think that that's possible. They don't have the depth to do
Yeah.
it. It'll be like TCU, where like they may win one, and then they'll play somebody else, and then they'll just get steamrolled, and that's fine. You got to the playoff. You had the best season you've ever had, and that's great, grand, wonderful. And Kurt Sagetti is going to get paid, and he's going to get a son-in-law.
Yeah, so like he's gonna get a son-in-law, of course. I think that it's unlikely, in my opinion, at this current point, but like if Indiana could get the 5 or the 6 seed and end up playing either the ACC or the Big 12 champion, then they could conceivably win
Yeah,
2 playoff games. Like that's absolutely in the cards, but like whether or not this team is a national championship contender, I agree with you. Like, I just don't quite see it there because, like TCU, like Cincinnati, like you could have all the talent in the world and be good enough and well deserving to be in the playoff. But, like, when you get up against the athletes out of Texas, of Georgia, and Ole Miss, and Oregon, Ohio State, like, when you get up against these athletes and you have to do that every single week, you're going to get clipped at some point if you're Indiana.
yeah. They're not playing this week. They're on a bye before they play, I believe, at the Horseshoe, and a
Mhm.
huge, probably the most important game of the Big Ten the rest of the way. Like that's
Yeah.
going to determine if. Kind of want to see Penn State fall. I kind of almost feel like they're bid stealing at this point. Like I'm kind. It's kind of in the point right now where I'm like, I was looking at the schedule here with pouring out and bowling, bowling, bowling. I'm like, there is no middle of the Big Ten. It's all just ass.
Yeah. We have a 4 for 4 coming a little bit later, and let me go ahead and just tell you because you know what it's about. But the Big Ten was the hardest one to figure out because there's a lot of teams
Yes,
that fit that mold.
yes, yeah. Everyone else, it was like, okay, I'm just selling this stock. I'm kind of out in the future of this. And the Big Ten to get there, you're like, well, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
But I guess another one that I had was I think Colorado is going to be higher than what the AP put. I think Colorado is going to be the is going to be 16. I think they're going to be the last. Again, the selection committee is not going to do first four out like we do. They do first two out because like
Hmm.
math is hard. Uh, but like I
Right.
think they're going to be 16 because look, even though the Big 12 splits between ESPN and Fox, it's still somewhat of an ESPN property. And I think it's important for them to make sure that there are at least two teams that have a chance to win and not bid steal
Hmm.
in each Power Four league. And with Iowa State and Kansas State losing, they're pretty much on life support. Like you'd have to win for Armageddon, Colorado would have to mess up for you essentially to get to Arlington at this point.
Hmm.
And it just serves the selection committee to have Colorado artificially inflated probably a spot or two than what they probably got from the AP.
I don't even know if it's artificially inflated, honestly. Like, I agree with all the points you're making, but like right now, Colorado to me looks like very clearly, at worst, the second best team in the Big 12. Like, they're playing
Yes.
that way. And that's not just like where they are in the standings, they are playing like that. Like, you look at this Texas Tech team, a Texas Tech team that just beat Iowa State, and Colorado did a damn good job of keeping them at arm's length in Lubbock for the entire game. And Shador didn't even play that well, and they still were able to do that. They were able to, like, the defense. The thing people aren't talking about with Colorado because, you have Travis Hunter and Shador Sanders, taking up as much oxygen as they do, deservedly so, to be clear. That's not like a slight at them. But this defense has improved tremendously. Like they were penetrating Texas Tech's offensive line that entire game and making life really hard for Morton Salt back there. And like Taj Boyd had a really hard time getting anything consistent going in the ground. And like that's a really good Texas Tech offense, and they really made life hard for them and pulled out that victory. And like that's what Colorado's been doing. We know they can score, we know they have the weaponry to score, but the defense is stepping up in a way that I don't think I like, even in my most optimistic projections for Colorado, I don't think I saw the defense playing like this.
Colorado's started to become Oregon, which the good Oregon, and I think that that's really good
Yeah.
for them. They played Oregon, and I'm like, okay, that's the best thing we're going to see all year. Let's try to be that. Maybe Coach Prime can get people in there like that and get people fired up like Dan Lanning. I think he's capable of that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some sort of daddy ball stuff. I don't know, the Bo Nix, the Shador, whatever it is. It's there's
Yeah.
similarities there. So also, is Todd Boyd just is it Taj Boyd or is it somebody else? I'm sitting there thinking like, is it Taj Boyd Jr.?
It's I'm
It
pretty sure
doesn't.
his name is Taj Boyd. Am I
It might be
totally butchering his name? Taj Boyd, Texas
Texas Tech.
Tech. Taj Brooks. God, yeah.
That's
See,
so
I
that,
I was
that's
so
totally
close.
that's totally fair. I'm sitting there. I'm like Taj Boyd. The math doesn't math, but
No, no, sorry. Taj
but
Brooks, my fault.
no. But as I'm looking at this, so I took the AP Top 25 and I put together a playoff field based on what that would be. So your first four out would be Georgia, SMU, Texas A&M, and then Army. And then
Mhm.
Colorado would be a little bit past that. I think Colorado was ranked 18, so they'd be behind Clemson and Army. And I don't agree with that. I think that they're kind of in that same tier with Georgia, SMU, A&M, and Miami, maybe a tad below that, but like
Yeah.
that's kind of where I feel like they occupy in the eyes of what the selection committee would probably want to put in.
No, I think that's absolutely fair. Like, those are all the teams that we still believe in, but like we do have questions about, and they also like need to play their way in, essentially. Like you've lost your grace period at this point for those teams.
And I guess like the one other thing before maybe we move on, unless you got something else, is by doing this based on the AP rankings, there is technically bid stealing. 13, Boise State takes 11, Georgia's spot. So like
Hmm.
Georgia's out. And obviously we deserve to be out because we played like hellacious ass in the rain in Oxford.
Yeah.
Bums.
A bunch of
University
bums
of
down
Bums.
there.
Uh, you got any other thoughts?
No, so in the AP projections that I did on Saturday night, I had Miami, I think, dropping to 8 or 9, and they dropped a lot farther. They dropped to 12, obviously, in the AP top 25. And I said on Saturday night, that was one of the teams that I had the hardest time trying to figure out what to do with. Like I figured that Ole Miss would, jump them after the big win over Georgia, better than any win that Miami has on their schedule for sure. But I didn't know how how high Ole Miss would go and then what that would mean for Miami. And so like you look at this and it's pretty fair for Miami. Like I'm sure Miami fans are pissed about it. They're like, we're a one-loss team, we're the 12th, we're ranked 12th. Like, what's this all about? We're behind multiple two-loss teams. Like, how did we get here? But at the same time, Miami's signature win right now is Louisville.
Yeah.
And like after that, they don't have another win over a team that is currently ranked. So like your res at a certain point, like when you're undefeated, you get the Indiana treatment where you get the benefit of the doubt until you don't. And when you have that one
Exactly.
loss, you really start to put the cone to the resume, and the cone to the resume to Miami is not very kind.
No, you're only ranked two spots ahead of SMU at 14. So SMU is 14, Miami is 12. But the good news is you're not technically bid stealing, you're seed stealing. You go from 12 to 4. So you can still get the first round bye. And SMU is on
Mhm.
the outside looking in with doing based off the AP, which is wild. I mean, it's crazy. Like somehow with the voting, we're gonna see some really interesting stuff here in the next 3 weeks. It's gonna be like, I didn't think that was possible, but here we are.
No, 100%. And like the thing that I feel like is going a little under talked about when it comes to Miami is yes, right now Clemson doesn't control their own destiny because Miami has the win over Louisville. Clemson lost to Louisville, and that's the tiebreaker that they would use to put Miami into the ACC championship game if we continue down this path that we're going on. But if Miami loses again, Clemson's a shoe-in into the ACC title. Miami's going to miss out on the ACC championship game entirely, which would be a wild turn of events. But after the way they played against Georgia Tech, who's to say they can't lose again?
I'm gonna look this up real quick. Just I'm looking at the ACC standings. I believe yes, Clemson's played one more game than Miami. Miami's got two more conference games left, whereas Clemson just has one. So even if Clemson loses to South Carolina, as long as they win that game and Miami slips up, they're gonna go to Charlotte.
Yeah, it's devolving pretty quickly for the Hurricanes. Like that's where it's coming down to.
It was all about the U until it was all about the bees.
The bees, baby. Buzz,
The
buzz.
bees. Buzz, buzz. And playoffs, you kidding me? Yes, the playoffs got me buzzing here. Georgia Tech's not going to be anywhere in here, but that's
No.
okay. And this is false start.
They're in
So
the playoff in our hearts. That's
yes, they're going to a bowl game, which I'm glad they get to go to. I want to see teams that are fun to go to a bowl game, even if they're like
Mhm.
6-6 or 7-5. I don't want to see some like I only want to see
Missouri.
Yes, I only want to see Mizzou in there with Brady Cook playing.
Yeah. Get Drew Pine off of my TV screen forever.
I'd rather see Chris Pine play Drew Pine.
Absolutely.
You've aged terribly and majestically at the same time. You've aged. You
You've
got better with
aged.
age. You got better with age. Oh yeah. So let's look at our top 12. This is gonna be stupid. So I would venture to guess we have the same teams for 1 and 2. I would say that that's
Yeah.
pretty straightforward. I have Oregon and Texas. I don't think that there's really any discussion to be had there. I think that's very obvious.
Yes, it's Oregon and Texas at this point, and I don't know what the argument otherwise would be, unless you're like super in belief of Indiana and have Indiana at 1 or 2 because you think they're going to beat Ohio State and beat Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. Again, I love Indiana. I love what Coach Sig is doing. Have a hard time seeing that result come into fruition.
No, no, those are two teams that are 1 and 2 in the seeding with a bullet. Who do you have at three?
So I want to be clear with what I'm about to say. This is a projection for what I think the final playoff rankings, not what this week's are going to look like, what the final playoff rankings will look like. I have SMU at 3 because I think SMU is playing better than Clemson or Miami. I don't care who they play in the ACC championship. To me, SMU is playing like the best team in the ACC. I don't think Clemson's defense can stop SMU's offense right now. I don't think Miami's defense can stop them right now. Not at all.
I'm gonna ask you coming up a little bit later. Mine's a little bit different. I'm just saying, like, this is what I would do if I was in the selection committee this week. That's because I can't think that far out. My brain doesn't work that way. I have to work, except maybe not today or tomorrow, but I have to work. I have to. I can't get myself into Dan Wetzel pretzel.
No, we can't get in the Dan Wetzel pretzel. Not at all.
I have BYU at 3 and then SMU at 4. I kind of feel that BYU being undefeated and they have the head-to-head over SMU, that probably justifies them as the higher seeded automatic qualifier, five best champions. And SMU's one loss is to BYU, and their win, I think, over Pitt is probably more impressive than Miami's over Louisville. Miami won a shootout, if you will,
Yeah.
whereas SMU did a. I'm not even going to say that because given the month we're in, people still remember that. But yes, it was a bad time in Dallas for somebody who wasn't from there.
Correct. Yes. Not the best of times. So the reason I have SMU at 3 is not because I don't value the head-to-head against BYU. It's because I don't have BYU at 4. I have
Ooh,
Colorado at 4.
yeah.
And I was kind of teasing this in the first segment, but I think Colorado's just playing better than BYU right now. And
Uh,
like that's not to disparage what BYU has done. BYU is deservingly well ahead of Colorado in the rankings right now because they are undefeated. They're earning everything that they're getting at this point. However, if you put them up against a Colorado team, I wonder what that would look like. And as of right now, I would probably favor Colorado in that matchup. So I'm going to give Colorado the bid as the Big 12 champion.
I nearly put them in. I actually initially they were going to be in there because I went to sleep before BYU beat Utah in the Holy War because again I'm on Eastern time and I got to work the next day at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And so I was that was kind of where I was going back and forth. So I've got Boise State at 12, and I would have been there. One of them would have been 4, and one of them would have been 12. And I'm like, I'm not ready for this yet. Like I can't even figure out who 6 is. Like it was. But looking at Colorado's remaining schedule. I mean, if you win Rumble in the Rockies over Utah, which might not go to a bowl game. You beat Kansas, who's still alive, and then Oklahoma State, who is not. I mean, they're gonna probably cakewalk to Arlington, and like
Yeah.
I don't see how Iowa State or K-State get there. Like they're gonna have to screw up.
Yeah, I mean, like they no longer control their own destiny. It's Colorado and BYU control their destiny, and everyone else in the Big 12 is hoping for someone screws up. But As of right now, I don't think either of these teams look like they're going to screw up. I mean, BYU screwed around in Holy War, but that's Holy War. Like the rest of their schedule is not playing at Rice Eccles against your biggest rival who's like 15 miles down the road. Like that's a very unique situation that they got into on late on Saturday night.
I will say they got to go to Tempe. I got to play the Sun Devils. And I don't think
Mhm.
anybody wants to play them right now.
No, and I mean, you look at Colorado, like I'm actually not as worried about the Utah game because I think Utah, not only do they have to come to Boulder, like it's not in Rice Eccles, but like I do wonder if Utah gave its last best good shot
Yeah,
against BYU last week, and like we see them kind of pull back this coming week. After what I saw on Saturday, though, the game I'm worried about for Colorado where they could slip up at Kansas.
yeah.
Kansas looked like what we thought Kansas was going to look like coming into the season. Like Lance Leipold had Jalen Daniels and everything cooking against Iowa State on Saturday. So we'll see what that game looks like because that's actually, I think, the most troublesome spot right now.
I think that's fair. If Jalen Daniels has been rebuilt with the technology that they have, that's good. Also, I keep forgetting that I think Andy Ludwig resigned, so like they don't even have like a real play caller. A Wilson brother will do that to you apparently in SLC.
They're not even playing the Wilson brother anymore. They're playing I think his last name is Rose. I have no earthly idea what his first name is. I'm gonna try to find it real quick. Uh
Black smoke rising out Rose.
it's Brandon Rose. He's from Temecula, California, sophomore. Had never heard of the dude until this past week when there was a little buzz that he might start this game. But yeah, they're not starting a Wilson brother. They're starting a dude who I'm not sure knows how to throw a forward pass, but can run a little bit.
Is Brandon spelled like it sounds?
It is. Yes, it's a normal spelling of Brandon.
Okay.
Brandon. Like just
Okay.
how you normally spell Brandon.
Okay. It's we can't call it Bulldog. It's even though it's the
No,
same
no,
amount
no,
of
no.
letters.
It's not like a DYN or something like that. If he went to
All right.
BYU, it'd for sure be DYN.
I know it's like Dijon mustard, but it's pronounced Brandon. So you have Boise at 12, right?
Yeah, I have Boise at 12 still.
Okay, cool. Probably have this. We may have the same team at 5. I think we probably do. I would go Ohio State's at 5 for me.
Yeah, same. I mean, they're the number two team in the country. I don't think there's really any argument against that. So they're going to be the 5 seed.
6 through 11 is going to be weird. So let's get
Yeah.
weird. Who do you have at 6?
At 6, I have Penn State, and I'm with you. Like they do feel a little bit bid thiefy right now, but at the same time, I don't see them losing because what we saw against Washington this past week is exactly what Penn State and James Franklin do. If it's a team that they are better than, they're going to beat them. And if it's a team that is maybe a little bit more talented than them, they're going to lose to them. That's what Penn State does. Well, everyone on their schedule that's remaining, they're better than. So they're going to finish 11 and 1. You're not going to make the Big Ten championship game, but that's still going 11 and 1 is still going to get you into the playoff, and you're not going to take another loss. Your one loss is going to be to Ohio State. So I have a hard time seeing the world where any of these teams really jump them.
Yeah, you're on the pathway of going 11 and 1. You'll probably be a 5, 6, 7 seed, and you're going to host someone like Georgia or Ole Miss, and you're probably going to lose.
Yeah, exactly.
But I will say this: you're absolutely right, though. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of bid thievery here, a little bit. I like that bid thievery, seed stealing. There we go.
Yeah.
That's the vernacular that sits well with me on the Veterans Day day. Yes. But I'm sitting there. I think Penn State just has too much talent to be ignored. Like they can win multiple playoff games. They are well coached outside of James Franklin, and Beaver Stadium is a hard place to play. I always forget it's called that, but yeah, it's hard to play unless you're Ohio State. But either way,
Yeah, everyone other than Ohio State and in most years Michigan really don't have a problem with Beaver Stadium. Everyone else though, they do.
when Ohio State goes to Beaver Stadium, they just treat it like going to Buc-ee's. They're just having a good time.
Hell yeah, we're going to Bucky's, boys. Let's go.
The Buc-ee's of the Big Ten. There we go. That's going to be on graphic design. My passion. I love that so much.
Hey,
But
a gas station in the driving school, it just makes sense.
this is not the sheets you were expecting.
That's right.
But I will say this one last thought about Penn State that's good. You mentioned like they beat who they should beat, they lose to who they lose. I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, when PFF was really getting going with Sam Monson and
hmm
Steve Palazzolo, they had like the podcast. And one of Sam Odson's bits was like the Thomas Jones of offensive lines or running backs. It's like Thomas
Oh yeah,
Jones would get exactly what the offensive line would provide you and no more, no less. That's kind of what Penn State is. It's like they're going to
as a
get you
program,
as a
yeah.
program, the Thomas Jones of the Big Ten.
The Thomas Jones of college football, man. Like no team is like as bankable to do what they do in the country. Like there you have like Utah was that. Utah is obviously taking a step down this year. And so like no one else is in Penn State's realm of being the Thomas Jones of college football.
No, James Franklin's nickname is or his Hyatt is Thomas Jones.
That's right. He has the Thomas Jones tattoo. He just doesn't show it off.
Would you? I don't know. It's
No,
there.
you probably shouldn't. That's probably a good call.
Yeah, I don't know what's a good call. Who do you have at 7?
At 7, I have Tennessee, which that should foreshadow some things that are not kind to you. But
Yeah,
I'm a little worried about what's going to happen in this Georgia game coming up this week. But if Tennessee wins that game, I don't see like Vanderbilt is pulling back a little bit. Like they're not turning into a pumpkin by any stretch of the imagination, but they're seeing the rigors of an SEC schedule. And like Vanderbilt does not have the depth to withstand that, quite frankly. So like I'm less worried about that game for Tennessee. So if they get past Georgia, you're going to Atlanta. And if you go to Atlanta, even if you lose to whoever you play in Atlanta, like you're still going to be a top 8 seed, in my opinion.
I have Tennessee at 7. I don't like it. I'm sitting there. I'm like,
I
okay,
don't like it.
I'm sitting here. It's like Penn State. I'm like, at some point, I mean, I could be proven wrong. Like they could go out there and skull drag Georgia. It was just, but I will say Georgia has not lost in Athens since 2019, and so it's been a long time. I would
Mhm,
venture to guess that Dog Nation will be fired up. We'll see how healthy Nico is. I saw Dylan Sampson get beat up a little bit versus Mississippi
mhm.
State, who played them really hard. People are finding out pretty quickly. That's a team I'd be high on next year. They're gonna have a soft schedule too. They probably go bowling next year.
Oh yeah, like keep your eyes on Mississippi State. Let Jeff Lebby get his fingerprint on the program a little bit more. But like that team is not good right now, but damn, they play hard. And like they're
Yeah.
trying.
Did you see this? I think it was back in Oklahoma because Dusty Dvorak was calling the game. So they had a
Yeah.
picture of him,
Oh my God,
picture
yes, I
of,
did see this.
of Jeff Lepie as a GA, and then Josh Heupel as the quarterbacks coach. The Arizona State podcast goes, "That is over 3 on good-looking human beings."
Yeah, I mean, not incorrect. Like Dusty is like the most like normal looking of the three, for sure. But like he also looks like just the biggest Chad who's ever lived his entire life.
Yeah, he looked like his name was Chad Musselman, not like Eric Musselman, like Musselman. Like he's just. Then one day it's like, "You want to be on TV?" He's like, "Yes." Well, change everything about your face.
What you're doing, stop it. Get that little
Eh,
nasty goatee off your face.
But Jeff Levy's had quite the glow up. I mean, like he gained a bunch of weight and he's lost a bunch of weight. He's just getting in shape, and then Josh Heupel's just decaying before our eyes.
Just wearing the Letterman's jacket real hard.
I can't take it off. My skin's fused to it.
Oh
Oh
God.
God. Perfect unison.
There we
Jesus.
go.
Gotta break this. We do the same thing for 3 seconds in a row. We gotta stop. Maybe we're gonna pick the same team for 8. Who do you have at 8?
At 8, I have Alabama. So let's see if you're right there with me. But like Alabama is through the gauntlet part of their schedule. They absolutely just beat the living piss out of LSU and like they're pretty much a playoff lock in my mind at this point. They're probably not going to Atlanta because of the 2 losses. Like well, it's still possible actually, now that I say that, but because the SEC is set up for a lot of chaos, get ready to have your brain really, really broken on Thursday. But like it's going to be really hard for Alabama to not get in the playoff at this point.
Got them coming up here in a little bit, but yeah, I was looking at the SEC has still got 9 teams technically in it for the playoff if you include South Carolina, which I think has a 14% chance of getting in, which is insane.
It's wild stuff.
So I've got Indiana at 8. I feel like just because they're in a Power Two conference, because they're undefeated, because they've looked really good, they've handled some adversity versus the 2 Michigan schools. Again, schools that they've struggled with
Hmm.
before realignment when they were in the same division. That matters. And I think Alabama has been a high variance. I think Alabama's ceiling is higher than Indiana's, and I think their floor might be lower. just slightly, but I think it's Alabama can self-destruct. Alabama's like, you don't think I'm going to shoot myself in the foot? I absolutely will.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like I will say, so I'll lead into the discussion. I have Indiana at 9. So like I'm right beside where you are there. Again, I still think they probably lose to Ohio State, which is why I have them dropping to 9. But like I think they drop to a spot where it's pretty comfortable. Like I don't think they're going to be in danger of having a bid stolen. I don't think they're going to be in any real danger of not making the playoff. I just think that you're not going to beat Ohio State is really where I come down with on the Hoosiers. And one thing I was, thinking about the Michigan game and what that looked like and how Indiana performed in that game. I actually do think they're going to put up a really good fight against Ohio State because I think they got the nerves out against Michigan. Like because they were up against a different caliber of athlete, because it is a different just atmosphere playing Michigan than it is any other team that they played in the Big Ten on their schedule. Like Michigan fans are going to travel. You know that it's going to be a different environment. And look, you see the Michigan helmets, the Wolverine striped helmets, and you're going to, if you're not used to that situation, you're going to tighten up a little bit.
I mean, every guy that's on Indiana was told you're not good enough to play here, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And one thing about Michigan is, I mean, I also have Alabama at 9, so we have them flipped. I don't really have much to add there, other than yes, Alabama's a playoff lock pretty much at this point, unless they lose the Iron Bowl and then they fire Kalen DeBoer. But
Yeah.
I would say like one thing with Michigan is they can only play low scoring games, and that affects the opponent. And in that situation, every possession is magnified because the pace is slowed because Michigan can't throw the football. They got to run it. So it's like the ability for Indiana to air it out and throw it all over the place like they've done against other teams is not really possible versus a team like Michigan. It is possible versus Ohio State though, because Chip Kelly likes to use the hash marks to his advantage and his forehead. Uh, Greg Olson from the program, Greg the leg forehead too, but he's very handsome.
And quite a
Caught
handsome man.
caught a lot of Falcons games in a row.
The Falcons are like locked into like that number 2 Fox spot, and that's always the Greg Olson game, basically.
It might be on CBS this week because it's Denver, but again, it still will be. It's a 4 o'clock game too, so we'll be seeing the late. Feels like a trying to think who calls like late CBS games, like not, but it's not Tony Romo.
I think it's Iron Eagle, if I'm not
Okay,
mistaken.
Ian Eagle and God, what's his name? Charles. It's not Charles Davis. The Mad voice
Charles
of Madden.
Robinson,
No, Charles. That's for
Charles Davis.
it might be Charles Davis, I think.
Charles
Charles
Davis.
Ian Eagle Charles.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
Charles Davis.
Charles Davis. Okay.
Okay, why was I did not think it was? It doesn't matter. It's been a while since I watched CBS.
So I get a lot of CBS because I get every Broncos game shoved down my throat, which, as the world's number one Bo Nix hater, is not great for my rage.
Get to watch the Falcons play next week. Congratulations, but you do anyway.
Better than the Cowboys, I'll tell you that right now.
Yes, sir. So who do you have at 10?
At 10, that's where I have Notre Dame. I have Notre Dame
Same.
at 10, and like it just comes down like they're doing everything you need to do to make sure that 11-1 is there. And that's not just winning games, they're beating the brakes off everyone they play. Like Florida State is not good, but Florida State never had a chance in that game, quite frankly. And like I think they're going to do the same to Auburn there or to Army, excuse me. I think they're going to do the same thing to USC. Like I think they're just going to keep winning with style points and really not leave this as much of a question whether or not they're in. I still think the Northern Illinois loss is going to penalize them in the long run. Like they're going to be penalized for that, which is why I think like 9 or 10 is probably their ceiling. But like I do think that they're almost a lock at this point with the way they're playing.
Yeah, if they went out, they're getting in. I wouldn't say they're bid stealing because that's where they would properly be ranked. They've
Yeah.
got a better win than Penn State does. They've got the win over A&M, which is still good. A&M's still in contention. A&M's
Oh
going to
yeah.
be, we'll probably talk about them here in a little bit, potentially. Maybe, or at least I will. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I will say that the Notre Dame dogs doing things. Look at this. Look at this. Remus is just the tails. The tails are crazy.
It's just, oh God. Dog thing.
Uh, that's okay. But yeah, I've got Notre Dame there. I will say though, if they lose again, they're not making it. That the loss is
Yeah.
too punitive. They're completely out. So I've got them at 10 as well. 11, I've got Ole Miss. That's the last team I got in.
Same. I also have Ole Miss in. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that does not have Georgia in this field because I thought I was gonna hurt you. I thought I didn't want to hurt you, Bueller. Like I didn't want to do that to you, but like Ole Miss, they got their win. They won a game that we have not seen Ole Miss win in a honestly in our lifetime, quite frankly. Like when you're in contention winning this game, like they've had upsets, but like when you need to win a game to actually like play for something in the postseason, they won it. And now the schedule is pretty smooth sailing for them to finish at 10-2. And if that happens with the Georgia win under their belt, with a close loss to LSU, like I don't really see how they're not in.
I would say that like we mentioned this on 3 yards to decline a punt on Saturday night. Ole Miss is probably the worst team that could win a national championship. I don't think Georgia can get there. Georgia could win multiple playoff games if they get in. I still feel that like there's this in their head thing. But I think it's also great if we move on to like our first four out. The
Yeah.
Mark Richt annual letdown game got the best of both Miami and Georgia, who I have at 13 and 14.
So I have them flipped. I have Georgia at 13, Miami at 14. But yes, we're in the same boat. Like it's
Yes.
just the Mark Richt stink is coming back with a vengeance.
And then I've got A&M at 15 and then Colorado at 16. That's what I settled on.
So I have BYU at 15 and A&M at 16. So we're seeing it the basically the same way. We just have the Big
Mhm.
12 champion flipped.
Pretty much, yeah. So let's go back and recap this because I think we've actually made pretty good time. I look at this thing here, I'm like, okay, we might save 3 minutes. So I'm not gonna deviate. So I'll go and then you go and then we'll move on to the
Let's
lives.
do it.
Okay. My 12 teams right now are Oregon at 1, Texas at 2, BYU at 3, SMU at 4. Those are all AQ spots. 5 would be Ohio State, 6 Penn State, 7 Tennessee, 8 Indiana, 9 Alabama, 10 Notre Dame, 11 Boise State, 11 Ole Miss, 12 Boise State. Yes,
Mhm.
dyslexia a little bit there. Boise State gets the AQ for the group of 5. My first four out are Miami, Georgia, Texas A&M, and Colorado in that order.
Yeah, so you're going to hear a lot of the same names in very similar spots, but I have Oregon at 1, Texas at 2, SMU at 3, 4, I have Colorado, go Buffs, 5, I have Ohio State, 6, Penn State, 7, Tennessee, 8, Alabama, 9, Indiana, 10, Notre Dame, 11, Ole Miss, 12, Boise State, and then first four out, 13, Georgia, 14, Miami, 15, BYU, and 16, the Texas A&M Aggies yell about it.
Last year, Jimbo Fishery, he was gone, but we got some guys that are he gone now. So this was a pivot on the fly shortly before we started recording today. We are going to talk about being idiots versus Georgia and Ole Miss. I'm like, no, you know what? We're going to say the same thing. This is dumb. I know that, like, but there's still meat on this bone. So Brian Bohannon is now out at Kennesaw State. I believe he's the only head coach in program history. Did really well at lower levels, and they well, I'll unpack that there in a minute. There's some interesting, what are you doing? And then also Mike Norvell fired up Adam Fuller, Alex Atkins, and Ron Duggins, his wide receivers coach. So let's start with Florida State here for a second because I feel like you've been paying a little more attention to that. And there's
Mhm.
some stuff here that's not good.
No, I mean, it definitely feels like it's not my fault, it's your fault situation from Mike Norvell at this point. And like, don't know if I agree with that. Like, schematically, this team's not that different. You just are like you have a worse roster by a very wide margin. And like, yes, there is some stuff schematically, there is some stuff culturally that is problematic at this point. Like, but I also think the cultural stuff that comes down on Mike Norvell. You look at this team that basically just quit before the Orange Bowl last year against Georgia. Like the entire team quit. And I'm not just talking about opt-outs. You look at the guys that played. They weren't playing that hard against Georgia. They were just getting run over and just standing there being a tackling dummy. And I understand that if you had the same players that Florida State had last year, the season wouldn't look like what it did. But at the same time, this is still better than a 1-9 team, which is what they are right now. And to me, once things started really spiraling for this team, was particularly with DJU as quarterback, it felt like that, oh, it's okay to just mail it in. It's okay to give up. It felt like that permeated through this season as well.
Yes, I think the just the opt-out component with there was such a terrible taste in the mouth for the program that they could never eradicate. Then somebody didn't eat the poop and here we are. But
Yeah.
I mean and then lied about it.
Yeah, yeah. Not just didn't eat the poop, then lied about it.
And then look at Jared Verse tearing it up there with the Rams. Wish he was kind of on the Falcons. Although I like Penix, I'm like, yeah, I wish he was here. That would have been
Yeah.
really cool, Terry. But maybe he would have won the game and we'd lose to the effing Saints.
I mean, one of the things that just kept getting to me during the draft process was everyone was like, Jared Verse just like kept like slipping further out like to the the mid first round, and I'm like, have you guys watched this player who just absolutely wrecked opposing offensive lines the entire time? And shocker, he goes to the Rams and is just continuing doing what he did for the past 2 years at Florida State.
I'm not saying replacing Aaron Donald was going to be that easy, but like this is I mean, this is like going from Montana to Young or Favre to Rodgers or yeah, it's going pretty good there.
The
Um,
Rams don't do it by the book, but they do it well, whatever they do.
they do things why they always doing stuff. So I go back to this with Florida State. It became very apparent that like Adam Fuller was a problem. They were not the defense needed to show up because they knew Alex Atkins was going to be out for the first three games because of his show cause for tampering with a guy who got drafted like right after Jared Verse and various Mims and now
Yeah.
with the Bengals and everything like that. So I was on the whole Adam Fuller needs to go thing. So Alex Atkins still has a show cause, so he's just going to be unemployed for a year because he can't work anywhere else, which is absolutely wild. I mean, maybe I don't even know. Like, he can't even be like an assistant on someone's staff. Like that's so weird. And
No.
I don't know what how Ron Duggan's the wide receivers coach factors into this, but I will say though, anytime a head coach fires his coordinators, like you're immediately on the hot seat. That's why
Oh
Gus
yeah.
Malzahn's on there with Ted after firing Ted Roof, and then Ryan Walters, who may get fired before we finish recording here, put Graham Harrell out, and then who else? Oh, yes, Brent Venables firing Seth Luttrell. Like anytime you do that, I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, the red dot's on you, not the green dot, the red
No.
dot.
No, the red dot. And like it is very much like what I said. Like, it's not a me problem, it's a y'all problem. And like that's what you sell to the administration. And like to be clear, in the interest of self-preservation, yeah, that's what you gotta do. Like you can't be like, no, this is my fault. Like you can't take accountability because then you're gonna get the axe. So like I understand why this happens in college football. We've seen it 100 times and we'll see it 100 more because it is the move, but like it also is a move that is not a good sign. It shows desperation. It shows like if there was actual belief right now that Florida State was going to turn this thing around, not this year, but like moving forward, like this was just a blip on the radar, Mike Norvell would be able to sell that to the administration, would have bullet points to be able to point to. Right now, he doesn't have those bullet points because right now it's hard to like they're losing recruiting commitments left and right. Right now, they're seeing a lot of decommitments and like this was supposed to be the recruiting class that was supposed to be like, okay, we have reinforcements coming. Don't worry about it. Like we're stopping built this whole trying to build through the transfer portal almost exclusively. We're gonna really start getting Florida State humming the way it should be. Now that's starting to look like it's falling apart a little bit, and like things are devolving even quicker than I thought they would at Florida State. Like I thought they might be able to hold this together with Scotch tape, but doesn't really seem that way.
I tell you what, ain't no sunshine's gonna be sadder than like some of the precursors to Strife Aquatic. Like back in the day, it would be like the Beavs playing the Ducks. One's two, got two wins, one's got three, and that's it. It's
Yes.
I will say though, like Florida hasn't quit on Billy Napier. They got their ass kicked by Texas, but like they kind of gave it all versus Georgia. Maybe Florida wins another game. Probably not. They're probably going to finish the year 5-7. Florida State's not winning another game. I guess like the last that I've got about. I mean, you may talk about Florida State in a little bit. In a little bit, I don't know. But Norvell survived the season.
I think so. I
Yeah.
I think that it is it is tough to fire a head coach, even with the season Florida State is having and how bad it is, after he should have been in the college football playoff last year. Like that's a hard sell to fire that coach because you know what the ceiling of this is. But he comes into next season on probably the hottest seat in the Power Four, depending on what happens to other places. But like, if not the hottest seat, like top five hottest seats.
Yeah, I think he gets into him and Napier pretty much start the year kind of in the same sort of spot that we had, like Aranda and Pittman. So Napier, New Year, same here. Maybe Neil Brown's in there too. We'll see. Neil Brown's going to keep his job because of Scott Satterfield.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Scott Satterfield is the gift that keeps on giving.
He's Fuller, man. He's one of the better.
Oh God, the
uh,
Satterfield.
and then I know we don't really talk much about the group of five, but the Kennesaw State thing, that's a complete debacle. So
Mhm.
they fire Brian Bohannon. Okay, so they promote the interim coach is Chandler Burks, who was born in like 96 or 98. So he's still in his 20s. So I think he played at Kennesaw
Unreal.
State for Bohannon, who had been the only head coach in the program history. So basically, what happened was they tried to pin it like Bohannon resigned, but he got
Hmm.
fired by their athletic director, Milton Overton, who's the father of LT Overton of Alabama,
Oh, okay. Okay.
formerly of A&M. And you know where LT Overton went to high school? Milton
Oh my God.
in Alpharetta.
Love
So,
to see it.
uh, man, just a complete debacle. Like, we're always due for one of these. We're always due for a Manny Diaz. And
Yeah.
so this has happened. And you're trying to build momentum. You got to take your L's first year in CUSA. I mean, there's a lot of really bad teams there in that league, but look at Sam Houston, who you still gotta play Sam Houston, you still gotta play La Tech, and you still gotta play FIU. FIU and La Tech are still trying to fight for a bowl game. Those sound like two wins that kind of keep them there, maybe, but like you
Yeah.
have a little more patience than this. It doesn't you had to know this is gonna be a really rough year for the Owls, and here we are.
It's one of the most asinine decisions in the world. Like you said, he gone, and like I had already blocked this out of my thought process because like I actually got angry about it when I saw the news yesterday. I was just like, okay, you have a guy in Brian Bohannon who took you to the FCS playoffs, I believe, 4 times. Like he had a lot of success with the Owls at the lower levels of college football, and we've seen this transition year outside of Liberty and Jacksonville State and JMU, like those are the exceptions to what this looks like. Sam Houston is what this normally looks like. Like Sam Houston came into last year and they couldn't like one of the most putrid offenses I've ever seen in my entire life. This year, they're one of the best teams in CUSA. And it's because like when you have a strong program that someone has built, you've got to give it time to adjust to the next level. Like you've got to hit the transporter. You've got to start recruiting at the FBS level. You're no longer recruiting FCS guys. So it's going to take at least some amount of time, whether that's 1 or 2 years. And you have someone in Bohannon who has proven that he's a good coach. He's proven that he can build a program to succeed at whatever level he is at. And now you're just throwing that away because you're 1-8. You also beat Liberty. You almost beat UTEP this past week. That was the other thing that really shocked me is you're firing him after you went to overtime with, yes, UTEP's terrible. Don't get me wrong, but like you went to overtime, had a chance to win that game. So like it's not like if you went out and got embarrassed by UTEP, yeah, maybe that's a sign that maybe this isn't going to work with Bohannon. But I didn't see those signs. Like Kennesaw State's been playing hard. They're still playing for Bohannon and now you're just letting him go. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for what you're trying to do as you're making this jump.
Probably the best thing to ever happen to him in retrospect, because guess what's going to happen? Kirby Smart is going to call him. Brent Key's going to call him. Clay Helton's going to
Hmm.
call him, and Dale McGee's going to call him, and he's going to go work for
Yep.
one of those four guys. And the Dogs, Jackets, Panthers, or Eagles are all going to benefit by having a tremendous program builder on their team in some capacity. I don't know if he's going to call plays for Georgia over Bobo, but like people are going to see that and
He
be like,
should.
he might. I mean, but like just I think he just has such tremendous respect for what he's done up there at Cobb County at Kennesaw. Like that's just it's just tough. Like and
Yeah.
yeah. Well, what if he goes works for DeBoer, then Overton's he's like coaching up Overton's son.
He just benches Overton for no reason.
You're not even a defensive minded coach. Just bench him.
I'll hire him under all right. I'll come to work for you under one condition. Bench him.
Coach, I don't see my name on the depth chart. What's going on? We cut you. We don't cut. Well, you've been cut.
Go to class. You're a normal student now.
Yeah. Hope you have regular clothes you can wear as opposed to the the stuff the sweats we provide you.
We're gonna need the sweatpants off of you right now.
Coach, I don't think anybody wants to wear those anymore. And I don't want you wearing them anymore either.
And this is false start.
So today, I think it's now six openings in group of five. So you've got what? Utah State and Fresno State at the start of the year with Jeff Tedford resigning and Blake Anderson being ousted. Mike Houston's out at East Carolina. Mike Bloomgren's out at Rice. Will Hall is out at Southern Miss, and then now Brian Bohannon's out at Kennesaw State. I don't know. I don't. I'm just trying to figure out like when the first domino is going to fall in the Power Four, but like Purdue can't be the best job that opens up this year. That'd be so insane.
No, it's hard to see that being the case. Like there's going I feel like there is going to be a job that opens up that we're not talking about nearly enough. I don't know what that job is. Like I don't think UCF qualifies there. I don't it's just hard. Like it feels like there's going to be a job. Like I don't think North Carolina would qualify there if Mac Brown, retires or gets ousted,
No,
whatever it would be. But like there's going to be a job that opens up that we're just not seeing. Like we see it in every year. We see it in every coaching carousel cycle. We see it in every sport. Like we saw Tony Bennett step down at Virginia. Like we see coaches step down all the time, whether or not that's Iowa, Kirk Ferentz stepping down, whether that's I don't know, like what if Michigan fired Sharon Moore? What if they just know that like institutionally this isn't going to work? Like I don't know what that move is, and but there's going to be something that happens because, like you said, Purdue is not going to be the best job that opens up. Something's
no.
going to happen that's going to shake everything up.
And this doesn't even include like Lincoln Riley or Ryan Day. Like that's stuff that's kind of
Right.
been on our radar. It'll be something nonsensical like let's fire Eli Drinkwitz. Let's fire Brian Kelly.
Yeah,
It'll be
exactly.
something just like what in the hell?
Exactly. No, it's going to be something that just like floors us a little bit.
I don't know if it's gonna floor you a little bit, but I gotta ask you a question, Cody. Du Hast, Du Hast.
Oh, love a do host or do host on a Monday morning.
This is multi-pronged here. I think you kind of answered this here in the initial one. Rather than ask, is Ole Miss going to make the playoff? I think the question I'm going to ask you is, are the Rebels the most curious case in discussion right now heading into the final 3 weeks of the season?
I'm gonna go Duhas two S's because, like I was saying when talking about my 12 team bracket and having Ole Miss in at 11, even if they're in at 11, I don't like. I think that that's only a construct of SMU and Colorado ostensibly being bid thieves. I think the two more interesting cases than Ole Miss at this point are Georgia, and I think the other one is Miami. Like, what do you do with these two teams? Because Miami, if they go to the they went out in the regular season, they go to the ACC championship game and they lose to an SMU team, you still don't have really a signature win under your belt, but you're still 11 and 2 and you were a conference championship runner up. So like there is some value in that still. So like there's a resume there. Georgia, yes, if they lose to Tennessee, that gives them 3 losses on the season. You're not going to Atlanta and you have some questions, but at the same time, you still have the Clemson and Texas wins under your belt. If Texas wins out and Texas is the favorite to win the SEC, you have that win under your belt. So like how is that weighed? Especially now you have the head-to-head loss to Ole Miss, who's going to be potentially blocking you there. So like those are the two teams that I'm looking at where it's just like there's a case to be made in either direction, whether you think they should be in or whether they should be out.
You're spot on right there. It's Du Hast, two S's because right now, just how the voting came out and what the wins that I guess the two best wins Ole Miss has are Georgia and South Carolina, which matter.
Hmm.
LSU loss isn't looking better, and obviously Kentucky loss is terrible. But like right now, the head-to-head over Georgia is significant. Georgia might be the one of the most intrigued because if you beat Tennessee, you're in pretty much,
Yeah.
unless you lose to Tech, which could totally happen because that's just that this team has that in them.
Yeah.
Probably not going to lose to UMass, although God, that would be I'm gonna be off
I'm
that
gonna
day.
give
But
Georgia the UMass win. I'm gonna, be nice about that one. I think they got that one.
I'm gonna be doing stuff for the Arizona State podcast like birthday, and like I'll be looking down, and Georgia will be winning like 17-10 over UMass. I'm like, God,
Why? Why,
why are
God?
you doing this to me? Miami is also one to probably not as much as Georgia, but I would agree there too. I think there might be a third. I can't definitively put my finger on it. I think it might be Indiana. I think Indiana's got something
Yeah.
there too, where like, but again, like if they lose to Ohio State badly and don't get to Indianapolis, and then let's say Oregon just obliterates Ohio State, that's probably the worst case scenario there for Indiana. At that point, you're sitting there saying, like, you're really benefiting from an incredibly weak middle, really soft tummy there in Big Ten country.
No, 100%. And I'll throw one more into the ring that it's not interesting yet, but it could be. If BYU runs the table in the regular season and then loses in the Big 12 championship game, they become number one with a bullet, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because what do you do in that scenario? Because, like, they have the SMU win, and that's a great win under their resume. But, like, the rest of the Big 12 schedule is not not the best. Like, the Big 12 is going to hurt them. And so, like, what do you do in that scenario? Especially because then you'd be comparing, like, bring up Indiana again. You'd be comparing an 11-1 Indiana team whose only loss was to Ohio State to a 12-1 BYU team who didn't win its conference championship and lost to Colorado, but has the win at SMU. Like, that would be a really interesting conversation when we get if we got to that point.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about this next, but we literally picked one for each Power Four conference, and I'll probably throw out two more just to round out the field, like case of intrigue. So the ACC team of intrigue is Miami. That's been
Yeah.
established. We've talked about the Big Ten now is Indiana, I think, would be that team
Hmm.
because they've been throwing the wrench in it the whole time. The Big 12 is got to be BYU because if they lose to Colorado, that opens up everything. Georgia and the SEC. I would venture to guess from an at-large perspective, it's got to be Notre Dame because what if they lose to Army?
Yeah.
Is Army
What if
that
they
for the
lost
group
to
of five?
USC? Oh my
Yeah. Is
God.
Army that? I think Army's got to be that in the group of five. Like, what if they beat Notre Dame and Tulane and they got a challenge with Boise?
No, so Army is definitely that in my opinion because like you have a team that frankly I think is being held down now, not just by their schedule, but by the fact that like no one believes that this is real because of the schedule. Like voters are starting to believe and fans are starting to believe that this Indiana thing is real, despite the fact that the schedule's been solved. With Army, like we've seen good Army and Navy teams before and they kind of falter. Well, Army still hasn't faltered. They're 10 and 0 at the or sorry, 9 and 0 at this point, and you have opportunities abound ahead. Like the three of their remaining games potentially are going to be wins that they could sell as like a resume booster. If you beat Notre Dame, obviously a huge resume booster. Same for the Navy game though. Like if you beat Navy, who is still playing well, has gotten off the mat and is playing well, that's also a booster. If you beat Tulane, who is now ranked in the AAC championship game, that is another resume booster. So like everything that Army needs to do from here on out to get and like bid steal from Boise State essentially is on the table right now. Like they are absolutely in line to be able to do that.
Last thing before we move on, I was sitting there thinking about Army. My phone's just doing what it does over there. So they Army went out there and just destroyed East Carolina. Like they looked really bad. They went up to West Point and lost. ECU might go to a bowl game now. They fired Mike Houston. Maybe Joe Sloan, the
Yeah.
guy who's the alum there at LSU, goes there. Like the ECU wins getting better. Like, and they went out there, they pulverized him. So like there's
Mhm.
opportunities where you're absolutely right. There's more opportunities for the wins that Army has accumulated and could accumulate, could conceivably get past. I mean, Boise State. I mean, they're basically on the cusp of being a first four team out. I mean, with the AP, they'd be the fourth out. I'd probably have them lower, but like they're getting up there with Colorado, where we're gonna be talking about them.
No, 100%. And like, I looking at where Army is currently in the AP Top 25, I believe they're 18 or somewhere in that range. Like, let
Hmm.
me hold on. I think I still have it pulled up. 16, excuse me.
Yeah,
We've seen big jumps in the rankings already happen when teams prove themselves and get the big win. Indiana getting past Michigan, yes, they had help in front of them with teams losing, but like, it's not a coincidence that you beat a program of Michigan's caliber and you jump up to number five. You finally earn a little bit more respect than you had been getting. We saw SMU. They go into the Pitt game ranked, I believe, 20, and they blast Pitt like off of the field. They jump up to 13 after that. So like we've seen the voters not be afraid to make these big jumps. So if Army proves themselves and like does knock off Notre Dame, I would venture to guess that they would probably vault into the top 10.
I'm right there with you. But Cody, can you feel it? See it? here today. If you can't, then it doesn't matter anyway. He'll never understand it because it happens so fast. Moves so good, like walking on glass. Yes, you can want it, but you can't have it. We're gonna do some 4 for 4 with some 4 for 4 faith no more.
Yes, sir.
Which of these teams are not epic, not making it look easy on a Sunday morning in the middle of their midlife crisis? So this is gonna be fun. We're gonna basically identify one team in each Power Four conference where like the program going forward, we're just like, I've got no more faith in. So I'm gonna have you start. Who do you want to do? Who do you have no more faith in the ACC?
I gotta go Stanford. Like I still have a little bit of faith in Florida State, like just because like I can't get last year out of my head and the history of Florida State, quite frankly. Like there there's so many avenues for Florida State to get themselves out of this. Stanford, I don't know what avenue there is to get yourself out of this. Like I think that Stanford was struggling in the Pac-12 to begin with, and but I still thought that there was a chance in the Pac-12 that Stanford could potentially turn that around because you can sell the volatility of the Pac-12 to anyone. Now you're in an ACC conference that you are not geographically like remotely close to, and you feel like just a throw-in essentially at this point. Like you just feel like you don't belong in the conference you're in. You still have all the academic restrictions that you have to get guys into the program. And I just don't see what the selling point is at this point. Like there's just they're like, hey, do you want to like have to make a cross-country flight to Miami in the middle of November? Like, no, you probably don't if you're an 18-year-old recruit. So like Stanford's plight just got like a lot harder by going to the ACC, and they weren't in a position to get any more challenges than what they already had.
That's exactly who I have too. I was sitting there like I didn't really do. I'm sitting there like every other program that's either down has some way to flip it. Everybody else has something positive to go to. I mean, Florida State's coming off of they won the ACC the year prior. They'll make some changes. The Michael Alford will allow Mike Norvell to do that unless it's just, fallout, essentially.
Yeah.
uh, Dave Doran will be allowed an opportunity to figure this out with NC State. Cal's got a good head coach, Justin Wilcox. Wakes has the same thing with Dave Clawson. I don't even think it's close. Like it's clearly Stanford because like you're playing
Yeah.
in a conference you don't really belong in. The two other new teams, SMU is all about this and they're benefiting from it. Cal seems to be more about it too, which is kind of
Mhm.
shocking. And I don't even know. If I had to pick somebody different that's not Stanford or Florida State, I would probably say it's Virginia Tech. That's the next closest one I could get to. And even at that point, I'm just like, you're sitting there and you're thinking like, okay, there's opportunities to be had here with Florida State being down, Miami, you don't trust them, Clemson's down, and they're just not taking advantage of it. Like this is supposed to be a power.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech seems to have their stuff together more than Virginia Tech does right now.
Yeah, I think I'm not pushing back necessarily. Like I think Virginia Tech is on the cusp of that. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of like why I would still say Stanford number one with a bullet,
Hmm.
just because like it's so clear. But like the next best candidate, yeah, you're probably right. It probably is Virginia Tech. Like you look at even like you go further north, like I think there's a lot of reason to believe in what Fran Brown's starting to put together at Syracuse already. I think that Bill O'Brien is a damn good coach at Boston College, and like Boston College is remaining competitive. I don't think they're going to win the ACC or be a threat to do that anytime soon, but like that's not the expectation at BC. Stanford, like it's hard for me to imagine the Cardinal being in a bowl game at this point,
No,
like anytime soon.
no, exactly. Like Virginia Tech's got like the 5 wins there. They might lose Commonwealth to UVA, and Tony Elliott's got that thing going with Calandria. I mean, I know you hate UVA, but like that's okay. They're figuring it
Hey,
out.
I love the Whoopsie Daisy King though. I love the Whoopsie Daisy King.
Okay, I'm glad we got on the same page with the ACC. The hardest one to figure out without question was the Big Ten. So who do you have for that?
I went with Purdue because it seems like the easiest answer based on where they currently are. And I think that the big factor why I ended up landing fully on Purdue is it does seem like Indiana wants to keep Signetti around for a long time. They're trying to work out an extension. Whether or not they're able to, that remains to be seen. But like it's Purdue is always facing an uphill battle. I said a couple weeks ago, like they have to hire an offensive minded coach to replace Ryan Walters. I think that's what you have to win at Purdue. And maybe they do that. but you're also now coming into a situation where you're no longer Purdue for a long time, particularly under Jeff Brom, was big brother in the Indiana Purdue rivalry. Now that's flipping on its head in a dramatic way with Coach Sig being in Bloomington. So like the advantage you had in state, which is not a talent rich state, but like you still kind of had the upper hand for in-state talent that was worthwhile to go after to get into the Big Ten. Now I'm not sure you have that upper hand anymore. And so I wonder what this uphill climb is going to look like for Purdue, but it seems like, and I don't want to put this all on Ryan Walters, but it does seem like the program is not in a great spot because of that hire.
I don't even know who you would hire. Do you hire Colt Necky? I'm trying to think like who would you who
Would
would even
Kotomeki take that job?
no,
Honestly.
maybe not. I mean, I don't even know Drew Brees would take that job. Drew Brees did anything for money.
That's right. Just put up a check in front of him. He's there.
I'll tell you who you hire. You hire Mike Bloomgren. I think he's a good coach. I think
I
Bryce
like
is
that.
hard. Yeah, I think that gets you back to good there. But it's Purdue seems like the obvious one, but I was like, this just kind of feels mean. I think you're gonna like my pick.
Okay, let me hear it.
It's Maryland.
Ooh, I do like that. I do like that a lot.
Because so I'm looking at the bottom of the Big Ten standings. Okay, they're 4-5, and they're 1-5 in conference play. I think their only win is over USC. They've lost two in a row. They continue to turtle up over under Mike Loxley, which is better than what they had been, or DJ Durkin or whatever. Not safe for work. You
No.
just going to HR every day.
Yeah,
uh,
HR, the scheduled HR meeting before practice and after.
Booking your day with some HR. But you're sitting here, and in theory, I've always thought Maryland could be better because you have the Under Armour thing. Kevin Plank's an alum. You could be the East Coast version of Oregon. Well, Oregon's now in your conference, and they smoked you. You would
Yeah.
think that doing rid of divisions would help them not being in the Big Ten East anymore. What I've started to realize is this is actually hurt Rutgers and Maryland a little bit because it's opened up travel more for them, and they got a ways to go. And maybe Talia was better than we even expected. I'm looking at Maryland right now. I'm like, I don't know if you could fire Loxley. I think you could get somebody interesting to hire there. You can recruit the DMV area and benefit from it, but at the same time, I'm like, you're losing an identity here.
Mhm.
There's just no sizzle. It's just a turtle, man. And I love turtles, but it's hard to love this team.
Yeah, it's not even a snapping turtle. It's just a turtle. Like we're not, there's no turtles with teeth out here. And it's just, I think that's a really good call because it does feel like I think Loxley is a valuable part of a college football staff. I'm just not sure he's a head coach or a program runner or a good CEO type. Like I just think he struggles to get that like rolling in the right way because we've seen for someone who is as accomplished as Mike Loxley is, like to see this time and time again, he's like the C-list version of James Franklin. You know what you're going to get from Maryland. They're going to make a bowl game. They're going to make a bowl game every single year. But there's no ceiling. There's no ceiling with this team. They're not beating the teams that they shouldn't beat. And like that is there are coaches who I think could accomplish that at Maryland, who I think could maybe bridge that gap. But right now, it just feels like you're spinning your tires in mud a little bit.
Okay, I'm smiling right now. I got a great idea. I know who can replace Bobo. It's either Mike Loxley or Brian Dable. I would take one of those two in a heartbeat.
100%,
That
dude.
would be,
Both of those
yeah,
guys would be great.
because like Loxley knows quarterbacks, and he'll make Rashad or Stockton look really good. And then Dayball knows running scheme, and Gunnar Stockton's like gonna run through a barbed wire fence for that guy.
Quite willingly, yes.
Gunnar, there's a door over there. We
Run
don't take
through
no.
it.
There's a door, run through it. How do I get to the door? It's over there, and I'm over here.
Don't worry about that. Just figure it out.
That's good. So Big 12. Who do you have for the Big 12?
So I believe I have the impetus for us talking about this. Oklahoma State, man. What the hell
Yeah.
are we doing? Like, Gundy seems like he doesn't care that this team is bad. And like that's a problem. Like that I understand that part of it is Gundy and his shtick. Like that's just this is just kind of what he does. He like nothing is too big, nothing is too small for him. And so like unless you come after his players, of course, then he'll make a big deal out of it. But like generally this is just kind of how he behaves. Um, there's some systematic problems right now. You turned Ollie
Yeah.
Gordon back into a pumpkin. Alan Bowman, why you considered like someone who was mid at Texas Tech for 8 years, and then you bring him in for 2 years at Oklahoma State. Like, I just, it feels like Oklahoma State, much like you were talking about with Maryland, they've lost an identity. Like, when I think of Oklahoma State, I think of a strong quarterback, a strong offensive system, and good skill position talent. The skill position talent outside of Ollie Gordon right now is not there. Like the wide receivers are not there, and you have a quarterback who is probably below a jag at this point in what Alabama is. So like you're looking at this and it's Oklahoma State is not the Oklahoma State of old, and they really weren't last year either. Like Ollie Gordon really masked a lot of what was going on, and I think like because we were excited about Ollie Gordon, we were excited with Oklahoma State was doing, we kind of overlooked a little bit of the luck, the fortunate like breaks that they got last year, and on top of that, like the systematic problems that might have been brewing, and I think they're all coming to a head right now.
Yes, Oklahoma State was my pick too. This was the impetus for this because we just felt like they should be taking advantage of the power void at the top of the
Hmm.
Pac-12. They've got the Boone Pickens trust working there. They've been Gundy's the best program and or the best head coach in program history. He was a quarterback when
Yeah,
they were really good in the 80s. Threw the ball pretty well, but also handed the ball off to Thurman Thomas and some guy named Barry Sanders. The
must be
cattle
nice.
on it, yeah, the cattle put up more fight than his team. Ollie Gordon's revolved back into a pumpkin, and even though he defended him for being in the slot, I mean, maybe you're in the slot, Gundy. You don't even know what the score is of your TCU loss. The other thing is like they're stuck, dude. Like he's been
Mhm.
there since 2005. He's been on the staff since what 2000. I think he coached briefly at like Maryland in between at
Yeah,
some point, but like he's been there forever. It's kind of become institutional. Honestly, I'd rather see Gunner play quarterback. There'd be some cool nepotism just
yeah.
because it'd be fun. Just whatever. Maybe they win some game. It's really bad. I will say Alan Bowman, life story. So the other day, I'm clearing out the fridge. I'm like, I'm just tired of. We got to get rid of some expired food. Clean fridges freak me out. I don't like gross things in there.
Okay.
So sometimes you go through there, you look at like a condiment in there, and you just feel really bad, like how bad it's expired, and you're like, I gotta just
Yeah.
get rid of this. Like I had some Tabasco there that expired in 2021, and like it started to separate, and I'm like, I'm really glad I didn't eat that today.
Glad I didn't need the spice on my food today.
But that's Alan Bowman at Oklahoma State.
He's separated Tabasco.
The mayonnaise has demulsified.
You know what I did realize about Alan Bowman that I meant to bring up to you probably a couple weeks ago? He kind of looks like Steve the Pirate from
I did
Dodgeball.
mention that he looks like Alan Tudyk a little bit. Yes.
Yeah, it's a little unsettling, frankly.
You're too old to be a pirate. You're too old to be a quarterback at this false start.
Arr.
But if I had to pick another one besides Oklahoma State, I think it's a little harder. Honestly, I think Utah's in a really bad spot.
Yeah, because you look at Whittingham, who has basically already put like a expiration date on his coaching tenure, and they're already pulling back before he even departs. Like you have Andy Ludwig stepping down. Like it does feel like I guess the best way to phrase it would be like the institution that Utah has been is kind of just like it's not falling apart necessarily as much as it is just like reaching its end, reaching its conclusion, and like what the next step is from that point, have no clue.
They'll promote Morgan Scalley from within, and they'll let him go after 5 years because it's Utah's the worst team in the Big Ten, Big 12.
Yeah, 100%.
And then moving on to the SEC, who's in the worst spot? Like, which one do you have no more faith in?
I this honestly the SEC was pretty hard for me as
Yeah,
well, but I went with Oklahoma. And I think it's a what evidence do we have to this point that Brent Venables is a good coach? We know he's a
yeah.
good defensive coach. We know he's a good coordinator. What evidence do we have that he's a good head coach? The answer is none. We don't have any evidence of this being the case, particularly when you factor in everything that it takes to be a sustained program, a program with sustained success. Like, you recruited Jackson Arnold, great, he was a 5-star. You're ruining Jackson Arnold before our eyes, and he's not clearly like just a broken freshman right now, is what he looks like at this point. You look at the defense. The defense has been good, not great. You look at the offense, the offensive line in the trenches. Like, one thing that is kind of a dirty secret is a lot of defensive minded head coaches recruit offensive line really well because they know that's what it takes to stop a
Yes.
good defense. Like, that's what we see a lot of the time. Like, a lot of like passing game and offensive line coaches are defensive minded guys, and there's a reason we see that. Brent Venables is the offensive line is Oklahoma's worst part of the roster right now. Like, it's just I just don't see it happening for them. And then you add in the transition, the jump in competition from the Big 12 to the SEC. Oklahoma just looks like they're not just a step behind, but like 2 or 3 steps behind right now with Venables.
They're the close. We've been spot on with all of these. That's exactly what I had. I don't think it's particularly close for who number two is. I'm trying to figure out somebody to throw a counter in there as well. But you bring up a great point about the offensive line. Like Venables was a great sign stealer, in game. He could do it. Like he pick up on
Yes.
stuff. He could recruit and coach up defensive line, which was Clemson's strength. Clemson has and still remains really terrible along the offensive line. So maybe that like he just doesn't have the eye for it because he was there for so long and forgot what good offensive linemen look like.
Yeah.
The um the contract he's under is awful. The only way it's going to get better is if they fire Joe Castiglione. They're never going to do it because he's running essentially like I'm not gonna say he's got a family there. That's all I'll say.
I knew that's where you were headed. Yeah, 100%.
I try to think who is even like next for the SEC. Like I can't even think of like somebody to counter. I thought about Mizzou and Kentucky, but at that point, like Drink and Stoops could leave pretty quickly. I feel like they're kind of in a
Yeah.
weird spot.
I mean, the other one I heavily considered was Auburn. And I do
Yeah.
have, again, I've mentioned I have faith in what Hugh Freeze will do long term because like Hugh Freeze has won at every spot that he's gone to this point. And so like I do think there is reason to believe that he inherited a really crappy situation and it's just taking a lot longer than Auburn fans would like for him to get out of it. But at the same time, Auburn really sucks right now. So like it's not in a good spot, but like I think where like the separator between them and Oklahoma is I can see a path out of this for Auburn, and I think Hugh Freeze is working towards that path. With Brent Venables right now, what's the path out of here? You have the 5-star recruit at quarterback that's supposed to save you. You have all of the resources that Oklahoma has. You've had them at your disposal, and you're still a very middling SEC team at best.
You're absolutely right. The second answer is Auburn. And I was sitting there thinking, like, yes, Freeze has a very manageable buyout. You can get out of that. But then the job becomes toxic because you're running through coaches like Larry King did wives or Spinal Tap through drummers. It's who's going to want to take
Yeah.
that? Who's going to move their family there to be part of this thing, knowing they're going to get fired in 3 years? Like, but then it's also, you got to ride it out with Hugh Freeze. He's not the most likable person on
No.
earth. And you have to give him at least next year and maybe even a bit into year
Mhm.
four before you allow yourself an opportunity to fix this. It's not like Mississippi State, like they're going to give Jeff Levy 4 or 5 years. They're going to give him plenty of time. The
Mhm.
team's playing really hard for him. He seems to be bought in. I like that. And obviously, I think Mizzou and Kentucky have hit a wall, but again, you can reset that pretty quickly.
No, and let I thought about this yesterday when my brain was just wandering a little bit, thinking about Mississippi State and how hard they are playing and how much they believe in Jeff Levy. What are the chances that there's some guys in the Oklahoma program right now who are talented, who are wanting to
Yeah,
jump ship out of there, who end up at Mississippi State and they start like that'd be a wild scene, but I wouldn't rule it out. Like if like Mississippi State starts poaching some of that talent from Norman, like some of the better pieces of that roster, that's going to get really hairy for Brent Venables in a hurry.
it's not just going to be Oklahoma. It's going to be South Carolina too because of Shane Beamer. Oklahoma's about to,
Yeah.
it's about to, there may be somebody else with OU ties in the conference there, but like, yeah, that's
It has a chance to really snowball in a bad way for Venables to the point where like, yeah, that extension and that buyout are tremendous. Still not as big as Jimbo Fisher's, and they paid that. So don't know.
they're in a lot better place with Mike Elko already.
Yeah, 100%. Like if seeing what Texas A&M looks like now after, ponying up the money, I'm sure there's some folks in Norman who are aware of what that looks like.
And I don't know if we're going to do this for Oklahoma just yet, but we probably will here. We're going to move on to our final topic here. We're going to pour one out for, I think what's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine teams. I think eight teams are going bowling, 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 bowling. So let's pour one out for Florida Atlantic and not Florida International. Tom Herman. I think people just hate him. They don't respect his hydration. We're in Boca Raton, man. We're drinking daiquiris when we get out of bed.
Dude, 100%. It's the book. You got to have a martini for breakfast and for lunch and dinner and in between as well. But yeah, no, like I I'll be honest, I thought Tom Herman was going to work a lot better at FAU immediately than it has to this point. I still think it can work, but right now it's definitely not what they thought they were getting when they hired him in Boca.
I don't think that they fire him because he's got to follow Willie Taggart, who is the worst thing to happen to so many college football programs.
Just a consistent like trail of sadness wherever Willie Taggart is gone.
He's the dog that didn't express its glance. He's just doing all over your
Oh,
couch.
Jesus.
The devil sharpie of your college football program. Got to pour one out for Del McGee and the Georgia State Panthers. Got the big win over Vanderbilt before they knew it was a big win. They've lost the Martyr Bowl to Georgia Tech. They've lost 7 games. Look, with Sean Elliott leaving and going back to South Carolina, that put Del McGee in a tough spot. Really like him. He's a good recruiter, running back coach, kind of CEO type. Just a tough spot. And obviously the Panthers just kind of ran out of gas.
Yeah, I mean, like I think the fact that it took them this long to not be to not, have a chance at bowl eligibility, that's actually a testament to Del McGee because like there was a world where this team goes like 2-10. So
Yeah.
like the fact that it took us until week 11 to get to this point, like I think Georgia State's going to be in a lot better spot long term, but like it was April, I believe, when Del McGee had to end up taking over. So like what the hell are you going to do when you take over a college football program in April? Like there's not a whole lot you can really handle.
Hurt Georgia too. Wish he was still here.
Yeah, right.
Maybe they would run the dang ball Bobo with Del McGee because they trust him. Gosh.
That's right.
Got to pour one out for Middle Tennessee, even though I don't think they drank. The only people that are sad in Nashville right now are Derek Mason and the Blue Raiders. You fire Scott Stockstill or Rick Stockstill, I think that's his name. He'd been there forever. His son played there. It was kind of an institution that kind of helped Middle Tennessee go from Middle Tennessee State. They became a bigger brand, but right now, just a complete afterthought in the group of five. Maybe Derek Mason will figure it out, but obviously seeing Clark Lee having so much success at Vanderbilt at his previous job, just I'm like, ooh, I guess they really are that bad.
Yeah, I've watched a weird amount of Middle Tennessee football this year. Like I think I've caught like 6 to 7 Middle Tennessee games. This team's awful, bro. So like I when we talk about G5 teams that I don't know where they go from here, like I don't think the Derek Mason magic exists anymore, quite frankly.
I know they fix it. Here's what you do. You hire Middle Tennessee alum Mike Smith and his brother-in-law Brian Billick. It's
There we go.
Smitty and Billick. They're promoting helmets and they're going to be having a very competitive practice today. The Tar Gallers calibrator roster there with the Middle Tennessee State Blue Raiders.
The Raiders.
Dude, his composite photo had some really sweet sideburns in like the very late 70s. He was
Hell
glorious looking
yes.
man. God bless Smitty. Gonna pour one out for New Mexico State. Just Diego Pavia and Jerry Kill killed that program, and Tony Sanchez is just left with the crumbles at the bottom of a bag of Doritos. You can eat it if you want. People are gonna look at you weird.
No, I mean, like, I think New Mexico State is obviously losing Diego Pavia hurts quite a bit, but I also think that, like, losing Jerry Kill proves exactly what we've said all season long. Like, coaching has never mattered more in this sport. And, like, Jerry Kill is just a proven winner. And we're seeing Tony Sanchez, like, I'm sure if this continues, he'll get fired in 2 or 3 years. Like, that's just how it's been. But, like, this is what New Mexico State football was before Jerry Kill got there, and we're just back there at this point. So like, I hate to say I'm not surprised, but I'm not surprised.
No. Who is this Tony Sanchez guy? Who's this Mike Gundy guy? Got to pour one out for Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Only team that's been mathematically eliminated from going to a bowl game in the Big 12. They've lost seven. They've lost seven conference games.
Yeah, all seven of your losses, the reason you're not eligible for a bowl game came in the op wide open Big 12. Like, hell of a job, Mike Gundy. He did get one win last week, but I'll stop there.
Yeah, I don't remember. Who cares? It's he wins things. He's still got his eye. That's all that really matters. And
Oh no, I was talking about a Tuesday night win that he got.
oh yeah. Yes, congratulations. I flew completely over my head, but yes, he's gonna go on his boat later.
That's right.
And gotta pour one out for USOP. I was not ready for it. Gotta pour one out for Rice. Mike Blooming, we thought would be promoted to a better job. Maybe this is what happens when you let JT Daniels leave. Just nothing. I don't know what Rice is doing. Maybe, I don't know, maybe hire some quarterback guru. Maybe Graham Harrell. You know what? Why don't you be a
Just
coach? Who cares?
just
Who
hire
cares?
JT Daniels. Hell yeah, go for
JT
it.
Daniels and Charlie Weiss Jr. Just give Charlie Weiss Jr. a job. Why not? Let's do that.
I mean, honestly, there are worse ideas than that.
Yes, that's Rice has got to figure this out. Pour it out for Temple. I don't think Stan Drayton's going to last much longer. That program sucks. Like Temple was pretty bad when we were like in middle school and high school, and they kind of got good, respectable, and now they're back to that.
Yeah, the Matt Rule years are looking like extreme outliers at this point.
When you are longing for the Jeff Collins years, you absolutely suck.
As someone currently in the Jeff Collins years for my favorite college football team, let me go ahead and tell you, anyone longing for this is not in a good place.
And I don't know if Trent Dilfer keeps his yolks into his eggs when he goes to Waffle House, but we got to pour it out for the UAB Blazers. That was a terrible hire. They tried to do Deion Sanders light and not worked out. We'll probably see Trent Dilfer working for ESPN or Fox. We'll probably see him working for Fox next year.
Oh, for sure. Just bug that with a bullet. Like it's happening.
And I got to pour one out for the Utah State Aggies. Yeah, they're in a really rough spot. I know that they had to get rid of Blake Anderson, but I don't know where you go from here. That might be the worst program in the Mountain West right now because Air Force still has Troy Calhoun. Obviously, Wyoming's dealing with some stuff with, Greg Bowl retiring, with Jay Sawvell taking over with Utah State. I don't even know where to go.
No, 100%. And like geographically, they're kind of screwed, quite frankly, because like you have Deion Sanders in Colorado, you have Jay Norvell at Colorado State, you have Utah in the brand that Utah is, you have BYU in the brand that BYU is. Now you have UNLV rising with Barry Odom as the head coach. Like, where does Utah State fit in that? Like, they're last, I can tell you that in the pecking order. So, like, who do you get to come to play football for this program at this point? Like, there's no buzz, there's no excitement. It's a tough spot.
And Logan, you're not thriving, you're surviving, and this is false start.
That's
Okay,
right.
do you want to be an ass? And maybe I think I got to be an ass. I think I need to be an
Yeah,
ass.
so I think you're due. I think it's your turn this time around.
All right.
Buzz, buzz, because the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets took down the Miami Hurricanes and are now,
Bowling, 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 bowling.
yeah, they are. Uh,
That
Rich
felt
Rod,
dirty. That felt dirty, but yes.
Rich Rod is still thriving because Jacksonville State, the other Gamecocks, they are,
Bowling, 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 bowling.
oh yeah. The Liberty Flames might not be very good, but they won a sixth game, so the Liberty Flames are
Technically, they're bowling, 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 bowling.
technically. The Marshall Thundering Herd, a team who I do not think we've mentioned at all on this program the entire season. They are.
They want to fire Charles Huff, but they are really the air raid vehicle. They are a thundering herd. They are bowling, 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 bowling.
Oh my God. The Ohio Bobcats, the stalwarts of the MAC that they are. They are.
I think they're the first team in the MAC to be going bowling, 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 bowling. Actually, Toledo, but yes, they're next.
We're a Jason Candle slandering podcast, so that's totally fine that we're gonna dismiss them. Um, my good friend Ken N, who I will not again try to pronounce his name, but he has been the right hire for the San Jose State Spartans because they are.
Ken Nui Mata Lola 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 Lola. It's bowling, 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 bowling. Also, shout out to those. Can I get some of those coyotes you put on the practice field?
100%. They have apparently worked wonders. Shane Beamer in South Carolina, they are apparently have a 14% chance of making it to the playoff, but more importantly for right now, they are.
Bowling, 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 bowling. Yes. Looking forward to the Ameo bath against Shane.
It's gonna be beautiful, absolutely glorious. I think he dreams about it at night. Um, Again, another team that I'm not sure is good, but Sonny Dykes is not gonna win a national championship this year. But him and the TCU Horned Frogs once again.
They're bowling, 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 bowling. 22 is such an outlier, dude.
It really was. I don't know what happened. It just seems like a bunch of people bought the snake oil from that, though, including TCU and including the Clemson Tigers.
And I don't know what happened. Maybe y'all bought the snake oil, but we did get a new subscriber. I don't know who you are, but thank you.
Thank you.
This
Yes.
was episode 125 of False Start. Went a little bit long, but we had some things to talk about. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You can follow Cody Williams at the Sizzle20. You can follow the show at CFB False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. The fingers, man, they're coming out. It's like Freddy Krueger here. I don't really watch a lot of horror movies, but I should just like confuse them all. Like, use the Force, Harry, said Gandalf.
Said Gandalf.
Yes, but please give us a 5-star review on Apple. Really helps the show, really helps us grow. Won't help me grow sideburns, but it'll help me grow.
It'll help you grow for sure. And we do want to give out, it is Veterans Day, so shouts to all the veterans who have and are serving right now. Appreciate your service. And yeah, just wanted to give that little shout out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough out there. You guys don't have a tough job. You make a lot of sacrifices for a lot of people back home in your life. We
Facts.
salute you. Veterans, y'all are braver than me, man. Women, yes, you're just braver.
Yeah. Just a lot braver,
Just,
frankly.
uh, when you're Huron or Benji, it's a brave new world, and this is false start.